All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Tattoo Preacher Podcast. This is episode number 59. Hope you are all doing awesome. Today, in this episode, we are going to talk about some paranormal things. We're going to be hitting on aliens. Now, there's been recent disclosure stuff that I'm going to argue has, I think, been suppressed. And when I say they, people who are running the show behind the scenes made sure that everyone has been focused on other things. And so this whole recent alien disclosure has come out. So we're going to be diving into that a bit. But then also I want to then further elaborate on what are aliens. I posted some recent content on social media, and there's just been a ton of questions, ton of comments, as people are trying to figure out what are aliens. Are they demons? Are they fallen angels? Are they different altogether? What are they? So it's been a while since I've weighed in on that and done a video on that or included that in a podcast episode. Gonna hit on that. And then also I posted a video about a month ago on Instagram. Not Instagram, YouTube, on YouTube. And I think I actually did part of it in a podcast episode as well, talking about astral projection gang stalking. But there was this comment that kept coming up on my YouTube video when I uploaded it. Probably one of my most commented videos that I've done in this past year. And people they kept commenting about this thing called the silver cord. And so I had never heard of that, but it was commented 20, 30 times by different people. So I'm going to just be talking a bit about what that is. I'm not saying I have any, definite knowledge about it. I'm just recently done some cursory study and looking into it. So I'm going to just share about it, but then I want you watching this or listening, if you have information, if you know more about it, let me know. Comment down below, send an email, whatever. Let me know, because I find that this silver cord thing very fascinating. So that's where we're going in this episode 59. If that interests you, you're going to want to stick around. So here we go. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. All right, so starting off here, we're going to be looking at various aspects of alien phenomena. So to start off, there has been this recent U.S. Congress session that took place. And it's interesting because you would think that this topic, if it was coming out, if people were testifying in front of U.S. Congress about some of the things that I'm going to just highlight in just a second here. Like, it should be everywhere. It should be mainstream media. Every outlet should be talking about it, because when you look at all of these alien movies that have come out over the last couple decades, and in the movie, in the plot line, when it becomes, publicly known, discovered that aliens are real, or they're coming into our space, or people are encountering them, or UFOs are being seen everywhere, like, it becomes undeniable. And it gets, pushed out in the plot line. It's a global thing. It dominates the news cycle. It dominates people's lives. It's everywhere. Yet it's happening right now in real life. But it's kind of getting suppressed. It's not gaining and getting that mainstream attention like you would think. Now, granted, over the last number of weeks, the political situation happening in the U.S. has dominated everything. And so everything has been about Trump, Harris, all of it, and which is a massive deal. But you would think, even still, while that's going on, if there were actual hearings taking place where people were coming out, reputable people were coming out talking about new information surrounding UFOs, UAPs, aliens, this whole situation, it it would just it should just garner so much more attention. So the fact that it's not is just very suspect to me. Very suspect, and I have no inside information. This is just me from the outside looking in, and this is why I think, and I mean, I've heard other people say this as well, that when this kind of stuff is there, it just gets suppressed. It happens to come out right in the middle of some other massive event so as to hide it in plain sight. Everyone's looking over here and they'll kind of put it out over here. Doesn't garner that attention. And I don't think that is coincidence. But recently, some men sat before Congress, and one guy in particular, his name was Luis Elizondo, and had some interesting things to say. Nothing new. Last year, we saw a dude by the name of David Grush, whistleblower, come out and say similar things. But here we have another guy coming out in front of Congress, getting grilled. And here are some of the things, highlights, if you didn't see it, of what he talked about. He said he declared that UAPs, which stand for unidentified anomalous phenomena, they're real and involve advanced technologies not made by any known government. So these UAP, UFO, whatever they are, they're real and involve advanced technologies not made by any known government. Now, what does that mean then? What does that insinuate? They're not from here. They clearly come from somewhere else. And so that thought right there doesn't matter if you're a Christian, doesn't matter if you're an atheist, doesn't matter if you hold to a different worldview. That information right there should at least cause you to take a step back and be like, what? Fact that, and this dude's not the first guy. I mean, this is what Grush said last year. And this is what came out, I think, back in 2017, where UAP craft has been discovered, has been retrieved, and when they look at it, when they analyze it, they cannot find anywhere else on Earth where this material is used or where this material comes from. It's completely foreign to Earth. And all the governments, major governments around the world, they all know this as well, which leads in to the next thing he says, and he alleges the U.S. is in a covert arms race to reverse engineer alien technology. They're in a covert arms race. So governments around the world are in this secret battle to reverse engineer alien technology. So what does that mean? That they have it all over the world. And when you look at UFO sightings, UAP sightings, it's been happening for decades all over the world. And so clearly governments are aware of it, they know about it, and they're in a race to try to reverse engineer it. And so this is why I think there are a lot of sightings that are like UFO, UAP sightings, and I don't think every single sighting is a legit alien flying around in a craft. I think a lot of that are our attempts, different governments around the world, their attempts at trying to reverse engineer this technology, trying to, figure out how it works, fly it around, whatever. I'm not saying every single sighting is this, but I think a lot of them are our own attempts at trying to figure out what this tech is, how it works, etc. But there's a secret arms race trying to reverse engineer it. And then he went on to say that there's a lot of people, and Grush said this last year, there are a lot of people especially in the U.S. military, because this was a U.S. military hearing, that had been injured in the process of this reverse engineering, that men and women have died dealing with this technology, trying to figure out how to reverse engineer it, how to recreate it, how it works, whatever. And that there's funds that have been set aside to help these people who have now become disabled because of working on this technology. Like, guys, like, this is legit. This is crazy. Like, when we see this in movies, this dominates the narrative. It dominates the plot line. And yet here we are in real life. People are coming forward saying that there's a secret arms race from governments all over the world trying to reverse engineer alien technology, that these crafts are real and they're so advanced that we don't even know where they come from. So they don't come from here. Now we can get into, does it mean they're coming from somewhere far out in space? Does it mean they're coming from different dimensions, different realms? Or a lot of people postulate it comes from the water, deep under the ocean, where we've only discovered, what, 5% of our oceans. And so a lot of people see these sightings and they see craft flying in and out of water. Could be, but regardless, it's not coming from land. And this is happening, and yet doesn't make any mainstream news. Like, that, to me, that's so crazy. And so it's like, because this isn't the first time. I mean, this has happened last year with Grush, and I think it happened back in 2017. And people have been talking about this for decades. Now, they were considered crazy, lunatics, tinfoil wearing conspiracy theorists. But now all this stuff is become fact, like legit, real. And so it's like, okay, so stop having these Congress sessions. Clearly, this stuff is real. Clearly, there are committees, there are factions in different governments that are put together to go after this kind of stuff, to search, to study, to research, that work on recovered craft. And even Grush last year said that they recovered not only craft, but non-human biologics. These non-human biological entities, literal aliens, if you will, that have been recovered. And so it's like, this isn't conspiracy anymore. This is legit. This is real. So why not just fully come forward now? People we already know. It's not going to be shocking. Show us a picture. Show us video footage. Show us what's really going on. I think the public, we deserve to know. It's like, it's not hidden anymore. People see it every day. And you look at the alien abduction phenomenon, where tens of thousands and thousands of people have been, in documented cases, have been abducted by, this whole topic, this whole discussion is not a secret anymore. And so the fact that they kind of give us these little, I don't know, little breadcrumbs, session hearings where, oh, here we go, here's some more disclosures stating of facts that we already know. Just come out with the real deal now. I think we're ready. I think the public deserves to know. So, but I just think it's crazy how this stuff is happening and it's not making like mainstream media. It's not dominating all of the news outlets. Like, I'm huge into football. I love football. Sports dominates the media more than alien disclosure does. There's been a recent UFC fight that just took place, John Jones. That dominated. That got more press, more cover than aliens. It's like, how? So that's why, to me, it feels like there's a concerted effort to suppress this stuff, to not let it go mainstream. And I'm just like, why? I think we're ready. I think the government owes it to its civilians to give us the truth now. So Let me know, but let me know what y'all think of that down below. Now, if you're watching this on YouTube. Now, moving on. So, talking about aliens and dealing with this, I posted a few different videos on Instagram, on TikTok, and I get a lot of comments about what aliens actually are. And so a lot of people chime in. Great. A lot of people think aliens are just demons. Aliens are fallen angels. Um, or aliens are another race altogether. Now, I've seen all those different theories and opinions, but the majority of them that I see, they just think aliens are demons. Now, I've done a number of videos on this over the last couple years. And so I just thought it's been a while, so I'm going to address this again, what I think, what I believe aliens to be. Now, I don't think aliens are demons. This is, especially if you're a Christian, this is the common perception. And people think that any kind of malevolent, any kind of demonic, any kind of evil being, it has to be a demon. A demon is this catch-all, you know, one size fits all descriptor of evil beings. Which, if you actually study the text, you study the Bible, you look at not just you look at how the ancient writers and ancient people thought about these kind of things, you'll discover that aliens simply can't be demons. I think aliens are demonic, but something being demonic doesn't make it a demon. So quickly, what do I think a demon is? Well, to me, if you read the Bible, and again, I've done a lot of videos on this particular subject more in depth. I'll link them below. But when you read Genesis chapter 6, it talks about the Nephilim. Talks about the fallen angels coming down to earth, mating with human women, creating a hybrid creature, part human, part angel, part divine. And their offspring, this hybrid creature, is known as the Nephilim. Part human, part angel. Hybrid creature called the Nephilim. Now, when these Nephilim, when these hybrid creatures, when they died, when you read the book of First Enoch, part of their judgment was they were left roaming the earth. Because of their dual nature, part divine, part human, they were stuck here on the earth plane, and this is where they function. And so their part of their judgment was they had to exist here bodiless. And so for them to interact with our realm, with our world physically, what do they have to do? Well, they have to inhabit. And so what ancient rabbis and early church fathers and what they all believed was that demons, unclean spirits that we see in the Bible, we see in the Gospels, that Jesus dealt with, that the disciples, the apostles dealt with, that the early church dealt with, they were all the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. So in these hybrid creatures, when they died, their spirit remained, left roaming the earth. And then to interact with the earth, this is why they have to inhabit things, possess things. In order for them to, because Enoch talks about how they have the desires that they once had when they were alive, because they were part human. They could touch, taste, smell, all that. They have these desires, but they can't exercise them in spirit form. And so they have to possess things. This is why they possess people, they possess animals, they possess objects, whatever. And so demons, when we think of demon, unclean spirit, they're the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. That's who they are. So that then, therefore, then they cannot be what we know as aliens. These aliens who are flying around in UFOs, the little gray guys with the big heads, almond-shaped guys. Well, they can't be disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. So right, right away, they're not demons. So if they're not demons, then what are they? It leaves a couple more options. You can go fallen angel, or you can go just another ancient race, ancient faction in the kingdom of darkness. Now, I used to be 100% for the theory that they're just another faction. The kingdom of, like, what we don't understand is the unseen realm, the spiritual world, whatever you want to phrase it, is so much more complex, so much more big, so much more, it's so much more beyond what we can comprehend or imagine. And so it's not just, see, typically in church, we just think of, oh, you have Jesus, you have the devil, you have angels, you have demons, and that's it. Like, that's the categories. When in reality, when you study the text, there's so much more going on. There's a hierarchy. There's different kinds of angels, different kinds of entities, and there's rank, and there's hierarchy, and it's a whole other world. And so, I mean, just look at our natural world for a second. Look at all the different species that live, and think of all of the species that exist that haven't even been discovered yet. Like, it's vast. And so it's not a stretch to think that the unseen realm is just as vast, if not more. And so I think this is where I lean to. I think that they could be some kind of ancient race that has existed in the kingdom of darkness. I don't think they're good. I think they're evil. I think they're malevolent. I think they're demonic. And I think that somehow they are in the kingdom of darkness, and that's where they are. And whether they are a recent thing that, or whether they've come onto the scene more recently in terms of the last few centuries, or whether, they've been around for who knows how many thousands of years and just have chosen to kind of remain anonymous, remain hidden, and then now coming to, like, I don't know. I have no idea. But that's what I tend to lean to, and I was 100% that way, but I have heard a lot of arguments now and different theories put forward where they could potentially be connected to fallen angels. And so I'm definitely open to that theory as well, because when you look at what aliens do, and even when we talk about aliens, like, there's different rank and order and hierarchy even amongst quote unquote aliens. It's not just little gray guys, green dudes with the big eyes. Like, when you dive into this subject, I mean, those are the bottom of the barrel ones. And then there's ones who are higher in rank, there's bigger ones, and then there's what you call the reptiles or the insectolins. And then you got other aliens in Norse mythology where they're blonde and they're tall and they're good looking, and like there's so much more going on here. But when you look at Genesis 6 and the fallen angels and what they did, corrupting the human genome, they mated with human women, and then again, this is a whole other subject, a whole other reality going on here. But what they wanted to do was corrupt the human genome. That's why they mated with human women, to taint the bloodline so that the Messiah, Jesus, couldn't come. Like, that's the whole purpose. But they were genetic manipulation. And this is where you get into the satyrs, the centaurs, the minotaurs. What these fallen angels were doing was they were taking their divine seed genetics, mixing it with humanity, mixing with the animal kingdom, creating this whole host of cryptids and, like, weird stuff, weird creatures. But they were mixing with the DNA. And because they were mating with human women, you have this sexual component. Now, when you look at aliens, especially the alien abduction phenomena, that's It's been happening for decades, and there's literally been tens of thousands of documented cases where people are getting abducted, and a lot of the abductions involve some kind of sexual something where they want their sperm, they want the eggs, and they're trying to do stuff with the genome. It's genetic manipulation. Now that's, to me, that's very similar. Genesis 6, and you have alien abductions. And so there's a lot of similarities there. And so, it's not a far stretch then to say, well, maybe, perhaps aliens are some kind of creation, if you will, from Genesis 6. Maybe it's their mix. They have divine seed. Maybe it's a mix with some kind of animal that existed in the ancient past that we don't know. And you put them together and out pops an alien, like the centaurs or the minotaurs. Who knows? Like, could be some kind of biological robot that they've created. Because when you think about how complex, how intelligent, how far superior angels are and that exist in the unseen realm, like we can't comprehend the vastness of it, how big it is, what's going on there. But clearly there's technology. I mean, the government even admitted this craft is technology that we don't even know where it's come from. It's not from Earth. So if you have technology that it's coming from other places, whether that's off planet somewhere, whether that's deep in the bottom of the ocean, whether that's from a different dimension, like they're far superior. They're far more intelligent. And so you think of like alien tech, angel tech. It's so far beyond what we can comprehend or imagine. So who knows? Maybe they've created, maybe aliens, maybe the Greys are just a biological robot that's been created. Who knows? But so that theory, I think I'm still on the side of they're just a different faction. They're just a different ancient separate entity that exists in the unseen realm. But I could be convinced that they're connected to Genesis 6 and the fallen angels and what they did, mixing their genetics, mixing their seed with humanity, with the animal kingdom, with the human kingdom, and creating a whole bunch of stuff that they've, like when you think of ancient mythologies, Greek mythology, Roman mythology, all that stuff, man, could very well actually be true. People still, to this day, have sightings of minotaurs, of centaurs. So it's like, that's where it came from, Genesis 6. So there's similarities there. So those are essentially your three theories. But I do believe, I'm 100% convinced that they're not demons the way we think of demons. I think they're demonic, but demons, disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, cannot be the gray aliens, cannot be the reptilians, cannot be the insectilians, cannot be the whatever term, whatever level there that's in the alien sphere, not biblical demons the way we know them to be. So that is my thoughts on that. Now, there's one more part of this whole alien thing that I wanted to hit on that I forgot to mention in the intro to this episode that has to do with the alien sphere of things. And it's something that I heard, I'm going to say about 6 months ago, and I actually addressed it in the series I did on the occult on the podcast. So go back maybe 10, 15 episodes ago. But it's a different part of this, and it's something that's so bizarre, something that's so crazy, but I just want to put it out there because it's because I want to hear from you all, those of you who maybe have more information on it or maybe have more experience with it. But this whole idea of soul sucking. Now, what do I mean by soul sucking? So there's actually a verse in the Bible. Let me read it to you. In Ezekiel chapter 13. And the context here is God is talking to a bunch of witches, hardcore occultists who were immersed in the dark arts, who were, and if you go back and listen to these episodes, I mean, it's pretty dark, kind of the stuff that the ancients were involved in, ancient magic, spell casting, all this stuff. But there's this one part where these witches, these what they got mixed up in, and what's insinuated in the text here. Now, it says I'll start in verse 17. It says, "Now you, son of man, set your face against the daughters of your people, who are talking like prophets from their own imagination. Prophesy against them." So God's telling Ezekiel, proclaim this judgment, this prophetic judgment against these women, these witches. He says, and say, "This is what the Lord God says, woe to the woman who sew magic bands on all wrists and make veils for the heads of persons of every stature." Now, again, this idea of sewing magic bands on wrists and making veils, these are symbolic emblems that were involved in these crazy satanic rituals and ceremonies and practices. And I don't have time to go into the details of all that. But this is not just about wearing something around your wrist or wearing a veil on your head. I mean, it was immersed in these horrific ceremonies and rituals that these witches would engage in. These magic bands on all wrists and make veils for the heads of persons of every stature. And here's this phrase, to capture souls. And then it says, "Will you capture the souls of my people, but keep the souls of others alive for yourself?" So these women, these witches, were somehow capturing souls and deciding the fate of the person along with the soul. So capturing souls, and will you capture the souls of my people, but keep the souls of others alive for yourselves. Now, again, when you look at this stuff, how much do we take literal? How much do we take as metaphor? The context here is divine judgment against these hardcore occultists, Satanist witches who are involved in like crazy, dark, evil stuff. But this capturing souls stuff is like interesting. Now, so here's the text. Now, about 6 months ago now, 8 months ago, somewhere around there, I was listening to a podcast, the Confessionals podcast. And there was a guest on it who used to be involved in, or I can't remember all the details of her story. I think I'm not sure if she used to be involved in magic and witchcraft and came out of it as well, but she dealt with a lot of alien abduction, government, alien abduction stuff, and then MK Ultra stuff, mind control, government conspiracy, a whole bunch of stuff going on. So it's way too much to explain here. But when she was talking, sharing some of her experiences about aliens in particular, she said that when she was abducted these series of times, she said how she saw that there was this technology where they were where they could suck the soul from a body and put it in another body. And so they said that they did that to her, where her soul was taken out of her own body, placed into another body, and then put back into her own body. And I know it's going to just sound absolutely insane and crazy and like completely, I don't know, just ridiculous. I get it. But when you hear her story and it's just like, doesn't sound like she's making it up. Like when you hear her whole story, and then I think she's been on the podcast multiple times, and then you study just the occult, and you study other various parts of the occult, different factions in the occult, and these ceremonies, these rituals, and what they do, and then you start thinking, okay, and you start looking at alien technology. You start looking at what could they possibly have in that realm that we just can't fathom here. And then you see this verse in the context of hardcore witchcraft, sorcery, where God's getting Ezekiel to go after these women, judging them because they captured souls. It's just a weird. And so I did some cursory study and looked at a bunch of commentaries, and it has to do with life and death, this capturing soul stuff. So it's like, to me, it's just an interesting facet that I don't have a lot of information about, a lot of knowledge about, but I've heard it multiple times now. And while we're talking about aliens and this whole scenario, this whole recent disclosure, it's got me thinking about it again. And so if you're watching this, if you're listening to this and you have more information, you have an experience yourself of this stuff, of alien abduction, or maybe you have some cultic experiences or encounters with soul sucking, with soul transfer. I don't even know how to describe it, but I would love to know more about it. And yeah, so if you're watching this or listening to this, I'll leave a comment down below, shoot me an email. And yeah, just weird to me, fascinating. It just makes me think of like, man, there's so much more that goes on than we realize. And it's just this last like year and a half, man, my paradigm of what I thought, what I used to believe, has just been smashed. Like my understanding was always, it was just like, yep, you have Jesus, you have the devil, you got angels, you got demons, good guys, bad guys, nice, easy, clean, and not easy in the sense of, yeah, like there's a crazy spiritual war that we're in, but it's not as clean cut as that. It's a lot more complex. There's a lot more going on. And just look at our natural world, how many different species exist and how many we have yet to discover. And so it's just like, why would the supernatural world, the spirit world, spirit realm, whatever, unseen realm be any different? And what kind of stuff happens there? And then you have these verses that just kind of put a spotlight on this one particular thing, and you're just like, what is that? So yeah, would love to know more about it. And then finally, the last thing I want to just briefly talk about, and I don't have real solid knowledge of this, but as I mentioned in the intro, I've recently heard of this term in the discussion surrounding astral projection and gang stalking via the astral, which, and I've said this multiple times now because I've done a few different episodes on it and videos on YouTube about it. This whole concept just blows my mind. The fact that there are people who are so heavily immersed in the demonic, who are immersed in witchcraft and Satanism and occultism, like to such a degree where they have the ability to astral project, and not only astral project, but then target people, travel to certain locations and spaces and places, and afflict and torment and, target people via the astral. And you hear some of these stories, and I've posted like videos, and I've got tons of people who sent me emails, long stories of experiencing this, where they're in their room at home and they know someone has come in their room and they're attacking them in the astral. They can't see them, but they know that they're there. And it hard to explain unless you actually experience it. But it's like they're targeted. And it's just a whole level of like spiritual warfare that I never heard growing up in the church. I never learned about in Bible college. It's like I just recently, within the last year, heard about this thing, and it all started from I saw this testimony of an ex-Satanist, and that's what she would do. Her and her coven of witches, they would astral project and have a list of like a hit list, and they would go after people, particularly Christians. And it's crazy because then she even said, though, she said a lot of times Christians, they would try to go after them, but when the Christians were engaged in prayer and intercession, it's like there was a shield around them and they couldn't get in, couldn't attack them. But when you think about how many people who are not believers, don't have the Holy Spirit, don't have Jesus, oblivious to that, who maybe have opened the door to witchcraft, to the occult in their lives, just, ignorantly. And they're free game. And the fact that people can be attacked that way, it's just mind blowing. But so astral projection gang stalking, where people, you can astral project at everybody, travel, go after, target, torment, bother people. And so I posted a video recently, about a month ago, and I started getting all these comments from Christians, particularly Christians too. And they point out a verse to me. And they were talking about the silver cord. What you have to do is you have to break that silver cord, and then that will prevent people who are astral projecting from going back into their body. So the verse is in Ecclesiastes. Let me find it. Chapter 12, verse 6. Ecclesiastes 12, verse 6 says this. It says, "Remember your Creator before the silver cord is broken and the golden bowl is crushed. Pitcher by the spring is shattered and the wheel at the cistern is crushed." It says, remember the Creator before the silver cord is broken. And so I've just done some looking at the commentaries and just looking about like what are people saying about this? What have people said about this? And basically what people think is the silver cord. And again, I don't want to say I believe this because I've just recently heard about this. So I don't really have thoughts yet. I'm brainstorming here. I'm compiling what I think about this, but apparently the silver cord is what connects the spirit part of you, the spirit to the physical body. It's this connection point. And let me just see here. Let me find the idea of the silver cord is often linked to Ecclesiastes 12, verse 6 and 7, which mentions the phrase, before the silver cord is broken or snapped, and the dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Verse we just read. While the exact biblical text may not explicitly reference astral projection, it is frequently interpreted within spiritual circles as alluding to the ethereal connection between body and soul. Now, this thinking, again, is very popular in New Age belief, in the New Age worldview, mysticism, Western mysticism, Eastern philosophy, esoteric thinking. I mean, all of that. So this is why I'm very hesitant. Now, what do I do know? Astral projection is real. I think it happens in the Bible. I think we see it for example, in Ezekiel chapter 8, where it says God took Ezekiel by the hair, lifted him up between the earth and the heavens, and he took him to certain places, and so he could see certain events take place. So to me, that's an example of astral projection. But here's the thing. It's like it was God induced. God was the one who was doing it, who was initiating it. Ezekiel wasn't trying to go after this experience himself. He wasn't going through any rituals, any ceremonies. He wasn't trying to elicit help from spirit guides and all this other stuff. It was God was like, I'm taking you somewhere. And so God did it. So I think traveling via that way, call it the astral plane, the astral realm, whatever, I think if you are trying to get there yourself, this is where God forbids it. This is where it's a big no-no. Don't do it. Christians shouldn't be doing that. We shouldn't be participating in that. Because I've heard a lot of testimonies from Christians now who were involved in that, who did it before they became saved, and the stuff that happens there. Oftentimes these witches, these people doing it, you partner with demonic entities. Like you partner with demons in that realm. That's where they're living. And you partner with them to do whatever said task. So this is not some like practice that's just so nice and it's innocent and it's fun and everyone can just do it and blah blah blah. It's like it's a demonic thing. You don't want to do it. And so I think I'm not going to sit there and say that, because I see it in the text in Ezekiel, I believe God led him in that, but God was the one who induced it. God was the one who took him. So, but it's not something that we should go after ourselves. And there are a lot of, I've heard a lot of testimonies again from people who have done it, who became saved and who were like, Christians shouldn't do this. And there was one testimony where this woman who was, I believe she was a witch, or no, actually she was a witch, became saved, became a Christian, and then, but didn't really know that it was still wrong to do that. So she did it when she was saved. She knew how to astral project, did whatever she did. And as she was coming back to her body, she felt this resistance. There was some entity that was there trying to block her from going back to her body. And if that happens, like you die. And so I think she said she prayed in the astral realm, prayed. Jesus showed up, took care of the demon, and basically said, if you do this again, you're on your own. Don't do this again, and allowed her to go, her spirit to go back into her body. So it's something that Christians should not do, never engage with. But then on the video I did, a lot of people were like, if you are in this situation, pray that the silver cord would be broken. Meaning, this connection point that connects the spirit to the body, if you pray and God severs that cord, then that person who's ever astral projecting, who's in your space, will then die. So that's kind of what I've read about, of what it kind of means, what people were commenting on. Again, I don't know. It's just something that I find super fascinating. Something that's just very definitely out there. But I would love to know if any of you are watching or listening to this, what you all think about this whole silver cord thing. Is it purely a esoteric new age practice? Like I don't even know how to phrase it, but a lot of people are commenting on it. And you see this verse in the Bible talking about the silver cord, which is talking about life and death. So this whole connection point could very well be true. But praying that it would be severed and cut as a way to combat it, that's what I want to find out more about. And if people who are watching this or you're listening and have experience with like deliverance ministry or spiritual warfare and you've done this or heard of people doing it, well, that's what I want to find out more about, this silver cord in astral projection. So yeah, Well, I think that's going to be it here for episode 59. Talked about a lot of crazy things this episode. I know for some of you, this may seem like I may be out to lunch. Like, who is this guy? But yeah, let me know your thoughts. Let me know your comments. Let me know what you agree with, disagree with, or whatever. Love to hear from you. This stuff is out there. It's out of the box. It's out of traditional mainstream Christianity. You're not going to hear this stuff in church, which I think is a shame, because so many people all over the world, Christian, non-Christian, are experiencing stuff and that they don't know where to go. They have nowhere to go to get answers because the church isn't talking about it, which is the problem. So, yeah. Thanks so much for listening. Episode 59. And we'll see you all in the next episode. Much love. God bless.